What if I told you that your midlife crisis isn't a sign that something's wrong with your life? It's a sign that something's finally going right. That the depression, the restlessness, the sudden urge to throw away everything you've built isn't a breakdown. It's a breakthrough waiting to happen. Carl Jung discovered something that will completely change how you see this turbulent period. Your midlife crisis is your psyche forcing you to become who you were always meant to be. The anxiety, the questioning, the feeling that your life has lost all meaning. These aren't symptoms of failure. They're symptoms of your authentic self trying to emerge. I will show you Jung's revolutionary understanding of why midlife crises are not only normal, but necessary for psychological development, and give you his exact framework for transforming this breakdown into the foundation of your most authentic life. Carl Jung didn't develop his midlife crisis theory from academic observation. He discovered it by living through one of the most intense psychological breakdowns in recorded history. In 1913, at age 38, Jung was at the peak of his career. He was internationally respected, financially successful, and seemed to have everything a man could want. Then his world fell apart. His relationship with Freud ended bitterly. His professional reputation was in ruins, and he began experiencing what he called a confrontation with the unconscious. Jung descended into what he described as his hell for 6 years. He experienced visions, heard voices, and felt like he was losing his grip on reality. But here's what makes Jung's story extraordinary. Instead of seeing this crisis as pathology, he recognized it as a necessary developmental process. He realized that his first half of life had been spent building an impressive persona: the successful psychiatrist, the respected colleague, the dutiful son, and the husband. But this persona, while necessary for navigating the external world, had become a prison that cut him off from his authentic self. Jung's midlife crisis forced him to confront what he called the unlived life, all the aspects of himself he had sacrificed to meet external expectations. The visions and psychological turmoil weren't signs of mental illness. They were his unconscious mind's attempt to rebalance his one-sided conscious development. This experience led Jung to understand that midlife crisis is a developmental necessity, a psychological process as natural and essential as adolescence. Just as teenagers must break away from childhood identities to become adults, people in midlife must break away from their first half-of-life identities to become whole human beings. The two halves of life. Why crisis is inevitable. The first half of life, building the ego. Jung discovered that psychological development follows a predictable pattern with two distinct phases. The first half of life, roughly from birth to age 35 to 40, is what he called the morning of life. This phase has a clear biological and social purpose: survival, adaptation, and reproduction. During this phase, your primary task is building what Jung called a strong ego, a stable sense of self that can navigate the external world effectively. You learn to develop a persona, the mask you wear to fit into society. You become a good student, a successful professional, a responsible parent, and a dutiful spouse. Acquire external markers of success: education, career advancement, financial security, social status, and family formation. Master social adaptation. You learn your culture's rules and become skilled at meeting external expectations. Build competence. You develop skills, knowledge, and capabilities to function effectively. This phase is necessary. You can't survive or thrive in society without a strong ego and compelling persona. The problem comes when you mistake this adaptive phase for the entirety of human development. The midlife transition, when the ego becomes a prison. Around midlife, something profound happens. Jung observed that people who had completed the tasks of the first half of life often began experiencing what he called the noon of life crisis. Despite achieving everything they wanted, they felt empty, restless, and profoundly dissatisfied. This isn't a personal failure. It's a developmental necessity. Jung realized that the same ego strength and persona adaptation that served you in the first half of life becomes a limitation in the second half. The persona that helped you succeed externally begins to feel like a straitjacket that prevents authentic self-expression. The symptoms of midlife transition. Existential questioning. What's the point of all this? Is this really what I want from life? Achievement emptiness. Success feels hollow. You've reached your goals but feel more lost than ever. Relationship dissatisfaction. Even good relationships feel superficial or constraining. Physical symptoms. Unexplained fatigue, illness, or physical complaints that doctors can't fully explain. Behavioral changes. Sudden interest in new activities, dramatic lifestyle changes, or rebellious behavior that seems out of character. Depression and anxiety. Not clinical depression, but a deep sense of meaninglessness and anxiety about the future. The second half of life. The journey toward wholeness. Jung understood that the second half of life has an entirely different purpose than the first. While the morning of life is about adaptation and achievement, the afternoon of life is about individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, rather than who you think you should be. This transition requires what Jung called a sacrifice of the ego, not destroying your ego, but relativizing it. You must recognize that while important, your persona and external achievements are not the totality of who you are. The tasks of the second half of life. Shadow integration. Acknowledging and integrating the parts of yourself you've rejected or hidden. Anima animus work. Developing the contrasexual aspects of your personality. Men integrating their feminine side. Women integrating their masculine side. Meaning-making. Shifting from external validation to internal purpose and significance. Spiritual development. Connecting with something larger than your ego through religion, philosophy, or personal spirituality. Authentic relationship. Moving from role-based relationships to soul-level connections. Creative expression. Expressing your unique gifts and perspectives rather than just meeting expectations. The unconscious eruption. Understanding the symptoms. Why the unconscious rebels at midlife. Jung discovered that a midlife crisis occurs because your unconscious mind rebels against the one-sided development of the first half of life. Everything you've rejected, suppressed, or ignored begins demanding attention. This isn't pathology. Your psyche attempts to achieve balance and wholeness. The compensatory function. Jung observed that the unconscious always compensates for conscious attitudes. If you've been overly rational, your unconscious will produce emotional or intuitive content. If you've been excessively responsible, your unconscious will generate rebellious impulses. If you've been overly controlled, your unconscious will create chaos. This compensation isn't random. It's targeted to address your psychological imbalances. The content that emerges during a midlife crisis contains exactly what you need for your continued development, even though it often feels threatening or unwanted. Recognizing unconscious material. Jung identified several ways that unconscious material emerges during the midlife transition. Dreams and visions. Vivid, often disturbing dreams contradicting your conscious values or self-image. These dreams usually contain figures that represent rejected aspects of yourself. Projection and attraction. You find yourself strongly attracted to or repelled by people who embody qualities you've rejected in yourself. The intensity of your reaction indicates the presence of unconscious material. Compulsive behaviors. Sudden urges to act in ways that seem entirely out of character. The middle-aged executive who suddenly wants to become an artist. The devoted mother who dreams of traveling alone. And the rational scientist who becomes interested in spirituality. Physical symptoms. Jung believed that psychological conflicts often manifest as physical symptoms when they can't be expressed consciously. Unexplained fatigue, chronic pain, or recurring illness may indicate unconscious material trying to emerge. Relationship conflicts. Sudden dissatisfaction with long-term relationships, affairs, or the urge to completely change your social circle often indicates that your authentic self is trying to emerge from behind your persona. The shadow's midlife emergence. The shadow, those aspects of yourself you've rejected or hidden, plays a vital role in a midlife crisis. During the first half of life, you develop a one-sided personality to succeed in your chosen roles. But this means significant parts of your personality get pushed into the shadow. Standard shadow contents that emerge at midlife. The rebel. If you've been overly compliant and responsible, your inner rebel may emerge, creating urges to break rules or reject authority. The artist. If you've focused entirely on practical concerns, your creative side may demand expression through art, music, writing, or other creative pursuits. The lover. If you've been overly focused on duty and responsibility, your passionate, sensual side may emerge, sometimes creating relationship upheaval. The spiritual seeker. If you've been overly materialistic or rational, your spiritual side may awaken, leading to interest in religion, philosophy, or mystical experiences. The adventurer. If you've been overly cautious and security-focused, your adventurous side may emerge, creating urges to travel, take risks, or completely change your lifestyle. Navigation strategies for midlife transition. Jung's framework for healthy midlife navigation. Jung developed specific strategies for navigating midlife transition in a way that leads to growth rather than destruction. His approach focuses on conscious integration rather than unconscious acting out. Strategy 1: active imagination. Instead of being overwhelmed by unconscious material, Jung recommended engaging with it consciously through active imagination, deliberately dialoguing with the figures and impulses emerging from your unconscious. The process. When you feel a strong urge or attraction that seems out of character, don't immediately act on it or suppress it. Sit quietly and allow an image to emerge that represents this urge. Engage this image in dialogue, asking what it wants and what it represents. Listen to its responses without judgment. Look for ways to honor what it represents without destructive acting out. For example, if you're a responsible parent who suddenly wants to abandon everything and travel the world, you might dialogue with your inner adventurer to understand what it needs. It's not asking you to leave your family, but to bring more adventure and spontaneity into your current life. Strategy 2: gradual integration. Jung recommended gradually integrating shadow material rather than making dramatic life changes simultaneously. This allows you to honor your emerging authentic self without destroying everything you've built. The integration process. Identify what aspect of yourself is trying to emerge. Find small, safe ways to express this aspect in your current life. Gradually increase the expression as you become more comfortable. Look for ways to integrate this aspect into your existing relationships and responsibilities. Make larger changes only after you've thoroughly explored the psychological meaning. Strategy 3. Meaning-making over acting out. Jung distinguished between meaningful change and compulsive acting out. Meaningful change serves your individuation process, while acting out relieves psychological pressure without promoting growth. Questions for discernment. Does this change serve my authentic development or provide an escape from discomfort? Am I moving towards something meaningful or just running away from responsibility? How can I honor what's emerging in me without destroying what's valuable in my life? What would this change look like if I approached it consciously rather than compulsively? Modern applications of Jung's approach. Case Study 1. The Corporate Executive's Creative Awakening. Michael was a 45-year-old CEO who suddenly became obsessed with painting, despite having no artistic background. Instead of quitting his job to become an artist, he used Jung's approach, active imagination. He dialogued with his inner artist and discovered it represented his need for creative expression and authentic self-expression that corporate demands had suppressed. Gradual integration. He began painting in the evenings and weekends, eventually incorporating more creativity into his leadership style. Meaning-making. He realized his artistic urges weren't asking him to abandon business, but to bring more creativity and authenticity to his professional life. Result: Michael became a more innovative and inspiring leader while maintaining his successful career. His company's culture became more creative and engaging. Case Study 2. The Perfect Mother's Rebellion. Sarah was a 42-year-old mother of 3 who had devoted her entire adult life to her family. She suddenly felt trapped and resentful, fantasizing about leaving everything behind. Active imagination. She dialogued with her inner rebel and discovered it represented her suppressed need for independence and personal identity beyond motherhood. Gradual integration. She began taking time for herself, pursuing her abandoned interests, and setting boundaries with her family's demands. Meaning-making. She realized her rebellious urges weren't asking her to abandon her children, but to model healthy self-care and independence. Result: Sarah became a more balanced and fulfilled mother, while teaching her children the importance of personal identity and self-care. Your Midlife Navigation Challenge. Here's Jung's practical framework for navigating your midlife transition. Week 1. Recognition and assessment. Identify what aspects of yourself feel suppressed or unexpressed. Notice what you're strongly attracted to or repelled by in others. Pay attention to recurring dreams or fantasies. Assess what parts of your current life feel inauthentic or constraining. Week 2. Active imagination practice. Choose one strong urge or attraction that seems out of character. Practice dialoguing with this aspect of yourself. Ask what it wants and what it represents. Look for the positive core beneath potentially destructive impulses. Week 3. Gradual integration. Find small, safe ways to express emerging aspects of yourself. Experiment with new activities or interests that call to you. Practice bringing more authenticity to your existing relationships and roles. Week 4. Meaning-making and planning. Distinguish between meaningful change and compulsive acting out. Develop a plan for honoring your authentic self within your current life structure. Consider what larger changes might serve your individuation process. Remember Jung's profound insight. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Your midlife crisis isn't a sign that you've failed. It's a sign that you're ready to begin the most important journey of your life, the journey toward wholeness and authenticity. The depression, the restlessness, the feeling that something is missing. These aren't symptoms of pathology. They're symptoms of your authentic self trying to be born. The question isn't whether you'll experience this transition. If you're living an examined life, you will. The question is whether you'll use Jung's framework to transform this breakdown into the breakthrough that leads to your most authentic and fulfilling life. If this video helped you understand your midlife crisis as a developmental opportunity rather than a personal failure, hit that like button and subscribe for more insights that bridge ancient wisdom with modern psychology. Next week, we're exploring how Marcus Aurelius built unshakable mental toughness through voluntary discomfort, practices that could revolutionize your resilience. Comment below and tell me, what aspect of yourself is trying to emerge in your midlife transition? I read every comment and often feature the most insightful responses in future videos. Remember, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Your midlife crisis isn't your breakdown, it's your breakthrough waiting to happen. Are you ready to embrace it?